Welcome to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. You're listening to the Going Solo with Cece. I am Cece Shatz, your host tonight. I'm the Doyenne of relationship building. I am a divorce, dating, and a life coach, and really try to help take you to the other side and bring you wonderful guests right here on our wonderful station. So let's get on with our guest tonight because she's an elite. And one of our very special guests that we have, Carrie Leaf. She's an MS LMFT. We'll have her explain all of that to us. She's the author of Therapize Yourself, if I'm saying that right, and Choose to Heal and Find Your Truth. She's a mindset executive coach, a psychotherapist, and a wonderful speaker. And we're just fortunate to have her with us here tonight. So welcome to the show, Carrie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
It is great having you. So tell us what your letters stand for. MSLMFT. Tell the audience.
Yeah, so that's my master's in licensed marriage and family therapy. So undergrad in psychology and then master's in marriage and family therapy in Iona College in New York.
Awesome. So you know your stuff for sure. And you've written this terrific book, really how to heal and find your truth. So tell us a little bit about your journey, why you decided to be a mindset coach, and how you came across, deciding that you wanted to write a book to help others.
Yeah. So, I've been in the field, in the psych field, mental health field for, a decade and a half, almost 2 decades. Ever since my undergrad, I was working in the psych units in the hospitals through college, and then, internships all the way through my master's and ever since. And so I've worked in a lot of different settings, college, the university campus, the hospitals, like I said, community mental health, substance abuse, the Iowa National Guard, all over the place. I'm in private practice now. And so along the way, I'm working, in residential treatment. So, kids 18 and under, worked with them too. They were living in those settings. But all along the way, I found myself, after all these years and all the different settings, there were some key things that just stuck out and that I was repeating over and over to all of my clients, no matter the age, no matter the demographic, no matter what they were coming for, the issue. There were just some key things that it's like, these are the basics that we all need no matter what to get a good, solid wellness foundation so that we can dig in deeper and heal and grow. And so that is just kind of how the book spilled out, was me just putting down on paper all the things that I found myself saying over and over and over to everybody.
Yeah, I thought the book is really very good. And we all need that. We all need to find our own truth, heal within and find our own truth. And sometimes we can't do that without help from someone. And so being a mindset coach, as you are, certainly will help break us through some of those barriers that we have. So we're going to talk about some of those tonight. We're going to talk about breaking repeating patterns. And we definitely have patterns. I know I even have realized that I have patterns in my life, in my relationships. So let's talk about this. What is breaking, or what are patterns? Tell us a little bit about patterns itself. Then we'll talk about how we can possibly break them.
Yes. So, speaking of mindset, so much of where our head is at isn't always, we're not aware of it. It's on a unconscious, subconscious level. Most of what drives us, most of our patterns and our behaviors, we're operating on a subconscious level. And then we're consciously aware of, maybe, I don't know, don't quote me on this, but like 10%, right? But 90% is like driving us of what we do. And so we do, like you said, we want to work to find our truth. And so a lot of that, what that means, because that's a big blanket statement, find our truth, right? What does that even mean? It's about coming back to ourselves and finding ourselves and learning ourselves and who are we and who am I at my core? What's my truth? We kind of really have to undo and unlearn and rewire a lot of what we've learned and experienced throughout life. And, you look back and you look at, little kids or yourself as a child, like we were just happy and fun loving, and we had our passions, and we didn't worry about anything. And we knew, oftentimes more who we were then than we do through the adult part of our life, unless we work hard to figure that out. So,
Right.
finding your truth is a journey back to yourself, your intuitive core, who you truly are before the world, gets to us, and we develop these negative belief patterns. And so that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about patterns. What do we see ourselves doing over and over again in this life, in our everyday? There's good patterns. We can develop good patterns and good habits, but I'm talking about what are the patterns that are keeping us stuck or getting in the way or creating problems. In the book, I talk about my own personal pattern. One of them, definitely have many of them, but one of my personal patterns was in my dating experiences and picking that same type of guy over and over and over, even after I had that insight and had that moment of, oh, I see what I'm doing. I should probably stop that. Like that's not good and healthy for me. Only to find myself doing it again, in the same situation, even after I had that insight, because these patterns are deeply ingrained. And so that's what I'm talking about when we're talking about those patterns.
Yeah, I agree with that. For me, I have found that not only is it the same kind of people, but it's the treatment. And then I realized, well, it's because I'm used to that treatment. And so it didn't become shocking to me at first until later on, as I started to realize, wait a minute, I don't want to be treated like this. And then I realized that it is a pattern that I've had. And so, we have to start recognizing these if we want to create a shift in our lives, which is going to have a positive effect. So how can we go about doing that? I mean, is this something we can do on our own? Maybe reading your book will probably be number one help, right? So everyone, her book is right here. So you want to get it on Amazon. It's, it'll be a good, easy read for you. But what can we do, and what can we share with the audience here today on maybe some steps that they can do that try to recognize that there is maybe a negative pattern that's happening within their lives?
Yes, good question. And so that is exactly, the steps that my book walks, anyone through. And so before I like to have people start digging into those patterns and identifying, okay, what's the big problem here and what are my patterns around that? I like to go around and do some of what I call the basics and just get them grounded and get that mental health and that wellness foundation the best we can get it. We're never going to be perfect all the time, but working on our mind, body, spirit, and checking those areas and seeing where we're at. So I like people to start out with grounding themselves in the sense of like, okay, how am I taking care of my body? Am I getting good sleep? Am I getting good exercise? Am I eating well? And starting to attend to those areas, tuning into what is going on with my mental health. What symptoms am I experiencing? Maybe family stuff. What am I prone to? Is there any, are there physical symptoms that I'm overlooking that could be an indicator of mental health, or the other way around? Are there mental health symptoms that could be an indicator of physical health? There's so that mind body, that gut brain connection is so crucial. And I could go off. I mean, I could spend this whole podcast
I
on
don't
that.
think, Carrie, people think about that. I don't think they think about that at all.
In our society, it's just so segmented. We pull those apart. You go to an MD for the body, and you go to a therapist for the mind, and you go to church or whatever your spirituality path might be for the spirituality side of it. But they're so important to be integrated and looked at all together. And I mean, even just like what we eat, or even products we put into on our skin or we use around our home, like they can throw off our gut health, and they can signal things that look like mental health symptoms, but they're actually physical things, toxins or food sensitivities or whatever. So like I said, I could go on, but that's a step past the basics.
Right.
That's a step past the basics. And I love to go down that road with people if they're there and they're willing and they're ready. But as far as what we're talking about, at least the very basics, 7 to 9
Right.
hours of sleep,
You
eat
know,
well.
and too, what I was thinking is like if
Mhm.
anyone's listening, when they listen to this show, and we get a lot of repeat listeners or later on on the broadcast. So if they're listening to this show, know that, you can start in a small step, but then if you want to dig deeper and you really start feeling like, you know what, maybe I do have something here I want to touch on, then they can always contact you later on and you can kind of walk them through some of the other steps that can help them go a little bit deeper within their lives to be able to discover some things, because it is truly an awesome feeling to discover things that you can actually make a change to. You can do a shift in your life. So to a very positive direction. So I want to make sure that everyone knows this, that you would be available to talk to them into a more in-depth, but we will cover just the basics here in the show.
Yes, I would absolutely love that. And my
Mhm.
website actually has a ton of information on it, the carrieleaf.com. So you
I'll
can
put that
start
up.
there. Yeah,
Mhm.
there's so much, so just as exactly what we were talking about. There's so many things there with the gut health and starting with the body on the website too, but more than happy to talk more with anybody. I would love that. But yes, so the basics, start with the baby steps, eat, sleep, exercise, where am I at with my mind? Where am I at with my spirituality? And when we got a good foundation there, that's when I like to then say, okay, let's dig in a little bit deeper and we're going to dig into the past, but we're going to start with the future. So we're going to start with what's your biggest problem right now, today? What's going on? Are you struggling in relationships? Are you struggling in work? Are you just feeling stuck? Is it anxiety? Is it money? Whatever it is, we want to know what's your biggest problem that you're dealing with today. And we start there. And then we're going to identify the negative belief that is behind that problem. And that sounds so simple when I say it, but that's not always so easy to do because remember, like I said, there are oftentimes unconscious, subconscious thought patterns that are down below that problem. So many times we just see the problem, but we're not consciously aware of what built up to that problem or what's the repeating pattern or what's the mindset, the thought process, the negative one, the limiting one that is fueling this problem. And so we're going to want to identify what is that core negative belief system behind that problem. And then once we get there, we're going to take it a step further and we're going to work on rewiring and reprocessing to a positive belief system. So, take something like anxiety, and a common negative belief pattern behind anxiety is I'm not in
Mhm.
control. That's probably the top one. It's not always that one, but that's a pretty common one. I'm not in
Mhm.
control. And so we would want to work to rewire, reprocess that to I am now in control of myself, of my moods, of my, whatever it may be. I'm in control of myself. And so we do that by walking through some steps and memories and experiences in your life. And then we work on tapping in and integrating that with the body and getting you to a place where you not only know I am now in control, because, the logic part of it, like I could know I'm in control, but a lot of times that's why I'm saying integrate, because we can be so disconnected that even though I know I'm in control, it does not mean that I feel and believe truly inside that I am in control. So we want you knowing, feeling, physically feeling, emotionally feeling, believing from the inside out that new positive belief.
Yeah, that's very powerful. That truly is very powerful. And then we have triggers that happen, don't we, as we continue through this process, right?
Yes. I mean, and
Mhm.
those are unavoidable, right? We're
Mhm.
always going to have triggers all the way through life, all the time. You can't escape those. But if we dig in and we face our stuff and we sit with it and we feel it, a lot of people say sit with it, and it's like, okay, what does that mean? We want you to physically feel, like experience and know what that physically feels like to deal with your stuff and sit in that emotion, not to intellectualize it, not to analyze it, but to sit with it, integrating mind and body and physically feel that. And so, coming back to triggers, the goal is when we've dug in and we've dealt with our stuff and we've faced our stuff and we've worked on our stuff, let's say initially, whatever it may have been that you're struggling with or you're trying to work on, you would get triggered like a 10 out of a 10 as far as 10 is the highest disturbance,
Right.
and if you work on it and you dig in and you reprocess, ideally will get you down to like a 0 or a 1. A lot of times it's like, it's not that you won't get triggered or you won't be bothered at all, like as if it never happened, but it will be way lower than it originally was before you started working on it.
Yeah, because you've experienced that feeling, you can come back to it again, how you solve that and be able to move forward with it. That's excellent information. And often people do experience that. And I get that all the time in the divorce support group where, they'll have something will happen as they're trying to grow away or start to establish their own lives again, and they'll get triggered by something that brings them really down and back into the unhappiness that they're feeling. And but then again, I often say, if we're feeling a trigger, we're living life, and so we have to live it, right? And we have to be able to feel. And can you imagine going through your life and never feeling anything? I mean, I think I would rather have some part of it where it might be difficult and learn how to deal with it than to not feel anything at all, right?
Right. And we don't know what good is. We don't know what the highs are if we don't have the lows, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing to compare it to. But, you're talking about divorce, for example, and that's a rocky road, right? Up, down, back and forth, and so many emotions. And, that's a grief process, going through all those stages. And a lot of times people will kind of beat themselves up when they get triggered, even after they've maybe gotten into coaching or therapy, and they feel like, wait a minute, I worked on all this stuff, what's going on? And then they'll beat themselves up for experiencing that trigger, feeling kind of shook up from that trigger. And that's the opposite of what we want to do. Like you said, that just means we're living life. But if we beat ourselves up for that, we're going to spiral down, right?
Right.
So we want to sink back into it and remember, hey, I've been through this feeling. I can sit with this feeling and I can live through it and I can come out on the other side. A lot of it is just we jump out of fear and discomfort, right? We jump out, we disconnect from our bodies, we escape. We just don't want to be there. We don't want to feel that. And if we would sit with it for more than, 2 seconds before we jump out, we realize like, okay, that's unpleasant, but I survived, right?
Right. Well, what I'm finding now, Carrie, and we can talk about this in the second half of the show, is that what I'm seeing now is that, some people will, just close down versus moving forward in their lives. Something will trigger them, that something will happen, and, maybe a bad date, maybe a health problem, maybe something that's happening within their lives that's really overwhelming to them. And so they just shut down versus trying to figure out how to be able to get through that. And then if we have time after that, maybe we can talk about, some of the, like we put up barriers in our lives and boundaries and things like that. So there's a lot we could cover. I don't think we're going to be able to do it all in this show, but we'll definitely have you back on. But let's take a quick break. And when we come back, let's talk a little bit about that, how people shut down during some of those tough times in their lives. How can they open up and move forward? So we'll talk about that when we get back. So everyone, before we leave, I want to make sure you know that we have Carrie Leaf here with us. We're talking about breaking repeating patterns, and she is a mindset coach. You can find her on her website, which is Carrie Leaf. That's CARRIE Leaf, LEAF.com. All of her information is there. You can email her. You can reach out to her, let her know that you saw the show, that maybe you have a question or two about your life that you would like to ask her, and I know that she would love to answer that. She is one of our elites, so she's here with us. She's going to be helping us on some of our other platforms, helping some of our singles being able to move forward in their lives. And we appreciate your help with that. Also, her wonderful book. She's the author of Therapize Yourself, Choose to Heal and Find Your Truth. And we can find that on Amazon, can we not?
That's right. Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
So make sure you guys go out to Amazon and get that. Also, I'm sure you have a link right on your website for it too.
I do,
So
yes.
you want to make sure that you get that. So we'll be back in just a minute. So you guys stick around. We'll be right back. Thank you, Carrie. Okay, we had a glitch here. So we're back before you know it. Oh, I love the internet, don't you? Well, you guys, you got a treat. So we're going to be here a little bit longer. You guys are listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. I am Cece Shatz, your host tonight on Going Solo with Cece. We are the #1 internet talk network for singles, and we're really proud of doing that. Also, if you guys ever want to reach me, which I know that you do, and I love your emails, you guys can find me at goingsolonetwork@gmail.com. Our website here for the show is Going Solo Media, and you know everything I do is right on goingsolonetwork.com. We're going to go right on into our show tonight because our guest is really awesome. So, actually it's to our benefit that we have a little bit more extra time with her. We have Carrie with us, Carrie Leaf. We're talking about breaking repeating patterns. She is a mindset and executive coach. She's a psychotherapist and a wonderful speaker. She's written a terrific book, author of Therapize Yourself, Choose to Heal and Find Your Truth. All of us are really going through something in our lives. Everyone. I mean, there's no getting around it. No matter how happy you are, there's still things that you have to, move through. And often we need someone in our mind, in our lives that will help us with our minds, with our mindset to be able to move forward in a very positive direction. And that's what Carrie's here for. That's what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about breaking those repeating patterns. In the first part of our show, we really covered a lot. We covered your journey as to your background, how educated you are, and how you've helped other people in your life, and how you've helped them move through. And you've written this book because you realize that finding your truth is truly an important step for people to be able to heal, find a joyous place in their lives, to be able to, move forward and live a very happy, fulfilled life. And so we want to thank you for doing that, knowing that something needs to happen. And in today's world, we've got a lot we're trying to overcome. So this part of the show, what we're going to talk about now is often we find ourselves faced with things that are very difficult for us. And instead of plowing through, because a lot of us don't even know how to do that. If we do try to plow through, we don't necessarily do it the proper way. But a lot of times we shut down, right? And we don't deal with some of those issues that maybe we need to deal with. So what do we do if we find that we're going through something in our lives that's big and it's overwhelming for us? What can we do to try to help us move forward versus shutting down?
Yeah, that's so big for so many people, right? And that's going to come at different levels in different points of our life and what we're working with that shutdown, and we can go a lot of different ways with this, but I want to normalize some of that. I mean, every single day we all shut down when we scroll on our phones or turn on the TV, right? And some of that's healthy to just, give the brain a break, and zone out. Some of that's okay. But we want to know when we're completely avoiding and escaping because there's areas that we need to heal versus when we're just giving ourselves a break, right? And so completely normal to avoid or shut down. We all do it. We just want to watch ourselves and know when we need to jump in and start working. But a lot of that is coming back to knowing ourselves. So knowing our indicators, knowing how we operate, and knowing our body. For example, a big indicator for me, and this is just me and my body, but when I have anxiety coming on, we actually our body is going to tell us before our brain catches up and is able to process through that and say, oh, this is what I'm feeling, and this is why, because this is what I'm thinking. So it's always the right side, always the right side. Don't know what's up with that, but the right side, my jaw on the right side will get really tight, really tense, and start to ache a little bit. And then it'll click and it'll dawn on me. I'm like, oh, I'm a little anxious. There's some anxiety brewing here. And that's my indicator to say, all right, what's going on? Maybe it's obvious. Maybe I know what I'm anxious about, but a lot of times I don't always know. And that physical symptom's going to tell me. So we want to know, we want to be in tune with our body. And that takes practice and that takes work. It takes, really trying to figure ourselves out. The other part, about knowing ourselves is knowing our coping skills. And I know that, self-care is a big buzzword these days, and not to minimize it, it's extremely important, but actually knowing what self-care means and what it means to you, because it's going to be different for everybody.
Right.
And I tend to look at coping skills as the things that we want to turn to help us in that moment when something is difficult and tough, and how we can get ourselves grounded or even temporarily distracted or regulated, whatever we may be needing in that time. But I look at self-care as those preventative things, think of it as like apple a day to keep the doctor away, right? Like, are you eating healthy, right? To avoid having health issues. Mm-hmm. So what are you doing self-care for your mind, body, and spirit, so that you're in the best place to handle life when life comes at you? Because it's always going to come at you, right? Like life will always come at you. And so if we have that good, we're going to handle it better than if we're just like going by the skin of our teeth, right? Or we're eating bebops every single day and loads of sugar and 3 hours of sleep on a regular basis. If our body and our brain aren't functioning their best, we make terrible decisions. And so we want to have good coping skills and good self-care. But we also, like I said, the whole thing about shutting down is we're avoiding being uncomfortable. We just want to stay comfortable. We don't want to feel negative feelings. We don't want to face, kind of the shadow sides about ourselves, the things we don't like about ourselves. We don't want to hear that stuff. We don't want to feel that stuff. So we shut down, we avoid, and that might look differently for everybody. Maybe you're sleeping too much. Maybe you're using drugs and alcohol. Maybe you're like literally escaping, running away, town to town, whatever it may be. Pay attention to what you're doing to those escaping and avoiding behaviors and those shutdown behaviors, and tune into your body, and your body's going to tell you what's going on and how to get through it. Sit with it.
Well, that's really good advice. That is very, very good advice. So often a lot of things that we can do, we kind of know, don't we? We know, and we don't always do them, though. That's the thing. Sometimes we just need someone like you to talk to that'll kind of say, hey, these are the things that you should be doing, and then we'll start doing them a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, we're all the experts of ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I might be the expert in my field, but I'm not in your brain. I'm not in your body. I don't have your memories, your experiences. My job, if you call me up or you're talking to me, my job is to help you find yourself. My job is to help you find your own answers, because you have them in there. You have your truth. You have your answers. You know exactly what you need to do. You know what is exactly good for you. It's just hard to sift through the mud and the muck and the pain sometimes when we don't have someone to help and guide us there. It can be overwhelming. So, that's the other part that I forgot to throw in there, as far as when we shut down and when we avoid, is often, because it is so overwhelming, break it down, little baby steps, right? Whatever the problem is, if we look at that big picture, it's going to be intimidating and we don't know where to start. But if we break it down and just take one step, one little action, then we build the momentum and we can go from there. It's that first baby step, whatever it may be, and it depends where you're at. I mean, it might be just getting up and getting a shower, that might be the baby step you got to start taking. It might be calling a friend that you've been avoiding because you don't want to tell them the truth about something that's going on in your life. Whatever the baby step is, start with, one, and then we can build from there.
Yeah, that's good advice. I had a friend that one time, she said that after her divorce, she wanted to get working out, getting outside. And so she had a coach, and her coach said, okay, so what I want you to do is get up and take a shower. So she did that. She got up, she took a shower. So she did that like every day for a week or whatever. And then the ladies told her, okay, go downstairs and then come back upstairs. So go downstairs and walk back upstairs. So she did that. Then when you go down, then the next time, go downstairs and cross over the road. Just cross the road and come back. So then she did that, and she came back and she did that. Then she said, okay, then I want you to go a little bit further and then come back and then go. And then she just gradually started going a little bit further till she started walking and doing and getting out and doing more. But it took her a while to do it. And it created, that safety net, knowing that you can come back into your own home, into your own environment where you felt safe. And but you did it in those baby steps. So it's magical sometimes for a mindset coach to be able to encourage you to step out a little bit and do something a little bit different, and create a shift in your life. So yeah, most certainly. Well, we've got just a couple more minutes. Let's talk a little bit about boundaries, because that's always a big topic, and we can only spend like a couple minutes on it. So, and then we can pick that back up maybe the next time we have you come back. So when we're in our lives, one thing I noticed that on repeating patterns, once we kind of go deep and we figure out what they are, we kind of start working on healing, working on some of those things. Then we have to start setting some boundaries for ourselves that gives us that safe environment. So any suggestions on that as we're setting boundaries for ourselves?
Yes, and it's going to be the same answer that I've said for almost everything about knowing yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, but, and there's so many different ways to learn ourselves and know ourselves. But when we have a lack of boundaries with other people, it's either because we don't know ourselves and we don't even know what boundaries to set, or we do know ourselves, which we do intuitively, right? We know, but we aren't enforcing them. And so therefore we're not being true to ourselves. And that is also all coming back down to fear, and so what you were just describing with your friend, facing fear in little baby steps, because fear of the unknown, fear of discomfort, fear of what if this happens again, facing fear. So we don't set boundaries if we're fearful of something. We don't set boundaries if we don't truly know ourselves and what we want to set in the first place. And even if we do set them, we don't enforce them if we're not respecting and loving ourselves enough to follow through. And so it's not only knowing yourself, it's loving yourself, but we have to know ourselves in order to love ourselves. And so who am I? What do I like to be? How do I like to be treated? What kind of things do I like to do? What are my make or breaks? What's that hard line for me? What do I accept and tolerate, and what do I not? And so therefore I have to really know who I am and what I'm about and what are my morals and my values and what do I stand for, because not everyone is going to set the same boundaries with others, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, boundaries are what teaches other people on how we are going to be okay with being treated. If I set a boundary, I'm telling you, this is my line of what I'll accept for treatment and what I won't, right? And I have to know myself and I have to love myself in order to do that, and if we can all look back at those relationships where we didn't set any boundaries, and we can all say either I was young and dumb and I didn't know better, or I didn't know and love myself enough yet. I was floundering, I was lost, I wasn't treating myself well.
Yeah, and that's okay. I think that's okay to recognize that you were there at that
Mm-hmm.
place. And now you can change it and you can shift it up and you can make something different for yourselves. And so recognizing where we need to work on ourselves is truly a blessing, I think, don't you?
Yeah, how else would we learn, right? We get this
Hmm.
wisdom from all those mistakes we make.
Hmm. I
And that's
know,
the difference,
absolutely.
right?
Well, I can
Choosing to
tell
learn.
that your book is absolutely terrific, and so I think I'm going to actually get it when we get off the call here
Oh,
today.
thank
But
you.
because I think it would definitely help. And I'm like everyone else. I'm always looking within myself and trying to be a better person, and try to live in the world as best as I can. And so I think we all need that to therapize ourselves and choose to heal and find your truth. And we all need to find our truth. And as we continue, moving and evolving, we're shifting, right? Our lives are constantly shifting. And so we need to constantly be reevaluating ourselves and thinking about where we're at, where we want to be, what we want, what boundaries we need to set, what's good for us, what isn't good for us. I mean, it's just something that just doesn't stop, right?
Oh, that is a never ending journey. That's for sure. But we can build upon it, right?
That's right. We
Yes.
absolutely can. But we have to take that step. And so I think purchasing your book most certainly would be a very good step for people. Also, make a nice gift for someone if you know that they're struggling too. So, everyone, you can go right to her website, which is Carrie Leaf. That's CarrieLeaf.com, and all of her information there. If you can't find it or you forget about it, go to goingsolonetwork.com. We have a page there for her that has all of her information, all her contact information there. You can reach out to her. I know she would love to hear from you. If you have a struggle that you might be going through and you want to try to get a little bit more centered and have some personal time, I know Carrie would love to be able to talk to you about it.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, that's terrific. Well, today it went by very quickly, and I appreciate the time that you spent with us. Are there any closing words you'd like to leave our audience today?
I think that the biggest things there are just start with the basics and take those baby steps, and that every single one of you out there, we all have our negative, patterns and belief systems, and you're all worth it as far as taking care of yourselves, healing, and your future self. Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're so true with that. I mean, it's so right because we all have stuff. I mean, all of us, and no matter how old we are, no matter what we've experienced in life, no matter how smart we think we are, we can always learn something more about ourselves and help us get us through the next plateau or the next level that we're going to be going on. And so I'm often telling everyone that you want to raise your vibration. The best way to do it is really know yourself and be able to then attract those into your life that you really truly want to connect with. And I know that Carrie would be more than happy to help you do that. So again, her website is right there. It's Carrie Leaf, CarrieLeaf.com. Reach out to her, get her book, and begin your path to raising your vibration so that you can live the life of your choosing, most certainly. Right?
Yes, definitely.
Well, thank you again. Again, all of our information is on goingsolonetwork.com. You can find it right there. And we want to thank you so much for being on the show here today with
Thanks
us.
for having me. So fun. I
It
appreciate
is
it.
great. It's great having you. All right, everyone, we're going to wrap up the show. I'm Cece Shatz, the Doyenne of relationship building. You're listening to Going Solo with Cece on WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, and we'll catch you right here back next time. Bye for now.